All right, guys. Final score: Templar Iron Hands, Iron Templars, 85. Necrons, 67.
Mhm.
So that was a game.
It was a wild game. I'm glad we showed some of the dice rolls, at least for when I went at the Silent King and totally failed, because that's the way the game was. Sometimes you succeed wildly and fail wildly.
Yeah. There was
Sometimes
no
in the same
middle
turn.
ground.
Yeah.
There was no middle ground. And so, I'd like to say, we usually use this point to go over the tactics of the game and that thing. But this was just a weird game all around. The one mistake, though, I think I'm going to just say this right off bat and start off with this right away. We looked at it afterwards and we talked about bring it down. What would have happened and what would have been the effect if I would have taken bring it down? And in hindsight, I don't necessarily think that I shouldn't have taken bring it down because of the fact of how reduced the points are when you are taking it, selecting it, as opposed to drawing it. And with that being said, if I would have taken bring it down, we would actually figured it out. It would have been 85-85 tie.
It would have tied,
So-
yeah. Would have been a
That would have been a
match
nice way.
game.
That would have been a nice way to end it out on. But that isn't what happened. That isn't what I selected. We played it. I played a good game. I played it as solid as I could. I really think that one of the big mistakes was as soon as we drew Hammer and Anvil, I probably should have jumped off Engage on all fronts. I did well scoring it, maybe, or jump off of Deploy Teleport Homers, trying to get into your center or into the. It just wasn't going to happen at that point. So I should have probably jumped in to bring it down. But this was my first time doing set objectives, and that's something I didn't think about ahead of time was, look at the deployment map, and in Hammer and Anvil style, with those three objectives being in the middle, that made it a challenge for me to hold objective markers while trying to complete that secondary. And I think that that definitely was a learning opportunity with this, of doing set objectives and building an army that can play on set objectives, is that there are missions that you might want to shift away from that on. And this was the first time seeing that and seeing with Hammer and Anvil how difficult that was really going to be.
Yeah, it's something, and it happened to me at the last tournament I played at. Somebody took fixed objectives against me because I had 6 vehicles and I had 4 characters, so they took Bring It Down and Assassinate. It didn't work out very well from them either. I think what we forget sometimes, we think about the regular games we've been playing with tactical objectives and how that will work. But if you take fixed, your opponent then can play against that much easier, because when you're playing tactical objectives, you don't know what you're going to get for the next turn, but neither does your opponent, so your opponent doesn't know how to shut it down. In the case of this game, because DJ took Deploy Teleport Homers, well, I had a lieutenant who picked an objective on the table, and then my army would always reroll ones to wound on that objective. Well, guess what? I picked the one in the center where he needs to go to do the action. So that was just something that, one example of being able to counterplay fixed objective.
Not to mention the Whirlwinds being able to pick up my units that were dedicated to do that. I mean, I lost almost 2 of those units right off rip. And then one of the Scarab squads was starting to make its trip across field to. He had a good time. He had a good time blowing up and doing some damage. But
yeah, there were some explosions.
He made it across. But I mean, realistically, now that being said, everything else was just crazy. Everything else, like you said, we would look into situations. You'd go and oath a moment and spend the command points and everything else, and then all your dice would go terrible, and I'd save everything, and then I'd go into a moment like with the Silent King, where it's like, I just need to make one of these as a 4-up. I have 3 4-ups. Fail all of them. Okay, I have 7 dice. One needs to be a 6.
Nope.
Fail all of them.
Nope.
Literally, basically failing 7, 8, 9, 10 dice rolls on any of the dice I needed right in a row. And then the King dies. King lives. I don't necessarily know that wins me the game because I was struggling with some of the secondaries. But having that King alive that next turn going in, first of all, the King probably would have smacked that Tech Marine into oblivion with how many attacks he puts down and everything.
We can't guarantee anything with this game. The way the dice work, you never know.
I will.
You might have just rolled all ones and then ones again.
I'll give you that. But he was definitely, definitely a lot. I liked him a lot more than I was expecting. So the King, I wouldn't mind trying him again.
Mm-hmm.
But the Doom Scythes, you give me your opinion.
They're fine.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you aced a dreadnought near the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
A dreadnought that had 11 wounds on them. I just think
225 points.
They are a bit expensive. But I mean, they shoot real well when they pop off. You picked up one of my dreadnought or my whirlwinds in Overwatch with one.
Okay, yeah, because I rolled 2 6s. I mean, again, wild dice.
You're right,
Wild
but
dice. You can't ever rely on that one. That was
but
wild.
that's the thing. I mean, you have so many high damage vehicles that the damage output is high damage. That by having some of them aren't going to work off every time, but some of them will. Just having that quantity of high value shots.
One thing I do want to double check, and maybe someone can let us know in the comment section. I know they took Overwatch away from towering. I don't think they took that away from aircrafts, though.
No.
I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think they did. So I think that was legal. I just, for 225 points, I was not feeling it. Because when they came on the board that first time, they just did nothing. The Tesla did more than their actual cannons did. And it was 2 of them. So one of them could fail as long as one of them did halfway decent. And it was one thing I was concerned about going into it, only the 3 shots and how swingy they potentially could be. And I saw that firsthand. Yes, the one swept across the field and blew up a dreadnought and then blew up a whirlwind in an Overwatch. Cool. All right. It earned its points there. But can I rely on that? Probably not. And I don't feel like I can rely on that thing. Silent King wasn't too bad.
Yeah, you have so much efficiency in shooting that his rerolls 1s to hit and 1s to wound just steps it up another level, so that it's extremely strong.
Especially with those, yeah, and then having that for like the spiders, for example, just being able to fire, and that's where I'm considering, because like with my Canoptic list, I had room for something big like that, and I went with the Tesseract Vault at first, and that didn't work too well. Now looking at the King and going, that would really give a lot of efficiency to the spiders and what I'm bringing around with the spiders. So I have some thoughts with him. I don't think he's completely, totally terrible, but 420 points is still a bit pricey for him.
He's a bullet sink, though. It took a long time a lot of work to kill him.
It really does. It really does. But aside from that, now going over into your guys, I mean, Gladiator Lancers, we've seen nothing but success out of them. And once again, still successful. They moved up the field, and the things that, the Silent King hit them hard, and the Doomstalkers hit them hard. I mean, I literally focused on them to remove them, so that eventually, because the plan for my plan was remove all of your las cannons. Mm-hmm. If I can get all the las cannons off the field, then I can start moving around the field and just pick stuff up, and obviously wasn't able to do that all the way. It took way too long.
Well, I put a lot of CP into keeping the gladiators around, because I put both Armor of Contempt and Smoke on the one when you shot at it, and he was left with only 2 wounds. So if I hadn't discarded one of my secondaries the previous turn and had the extra CP, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So it really came down to just me pouring a lot of extra CP into the defensive strats, but it paid off.
Ballistas. Let's talk about them a little bit.
I think they're pretty solid. I mean, when we're talking about,
points are they?
140 now.
Okay.
Yeah, and I found that in this list, I probably had too many damage-dealing vehicle type things, because I wasn't able to get everything castled up around Tech Marines to get all the buffs from the Tech Marines. But I feel like the Ballistas are pretty good. They reroll all their hits whenever they shoot anything that's above half strength. So they can go after non-Oath of Moment targets. And obviously anything in the Iron Spear, Iron Storm Shield, Spear.
Iron Spear Storm Shield Host.
Anything in the Iron Hands gets that 1 extra reroll, which really makes a difference when you're trying to get some wounds off, just being able to reroll 1. So I think they were kind of medium today. They did some work. They stuck around longer than the Lancers. They are more durable than the Lancers.
They were further back.
Yeah, well, they've got 2 up armor instead of 3 up. Mm-hmm. And so once you put them in cover and Armor of Contempt, they start getting actually very durable as far as that.
I wasn't really as big of a fan of them. They were in the back corner a bit. I feel like some infantry and some more objective doing things would fare better in that role. Mm-hmm. But then again, same with like the Redemptors. I mean, the Redemptors, they look cool. They're really tough. They're tough to take down, especially because the multi-damage weapon reducing the damage to them, that's tough. But a lot of times when you needed them to kind of do work, aside from the charge on the King, when that was efficient, some of the other stuff was a little lackluster. How many points are the Redemptors now?
Flat 200.
Oof, that's rough. That's rough. I would take the Ballista over the Redemptor in that scenario. But you talked about the Whirlwinds before and saying you were going to think about taking them out after Oath is gone.
Well, with this Iron Storm
with this build,
shield front. with this detachment, the fact that I have the enhancement that gives them lethal hits made all the difference, especially when we're going into harder targets. But your army probably isn't a good example of that because you have a lot of vehicles that are like T8 and they're strength 8. So they're actually wounding all right on a lot of your vehicles. A lot of other armies, their vehicles are going to be T9, T10, T11, T12, where they're going to be wounding on 5. So I think they still, the ability to reach out and touch anything is always strong, but they are still a little bit swingy because their number of shots is D6 plus 3. You might. There are a lot of times I rolled 1s today, and a lot of times I rolled 6s.
Yeah, it was like those are with those guys. That was the only 2 dice rolls that you had for them was a 1 or a 6.
Yeah, when I needed them to pick up the tomb blades, they didn't. But sometimes they pick up scarabs. In this case, it's their ability to chip damage off things is more valuable in against other armies besides Necrons because you just keep bringing stuff back. But I don't know. I still like them. I still like
infantry. That infantry on objectives and like units. There's a lot of times that armies will have units that are very, very cheap. I mean, I am doing it as well. You know, a single destroyer. Yeah. But a single destroyer, a squad of scarabs or something like that that's going to just hang out in a corner for secondaries or for any of these factors that you can just pick up and take down with those and just go, okay, I'm just going to clear those. And then it puts your opponent in a position where now they have to dedicate something else to do that. So,
and the other thing with whirlwinds is because they can shoot from out of line of sight, they're not putting themselves at risk. So they usually contribute most of the game. They're not dying turn 2 or 3. They're sticking around till near the end anyway. So, and
then the Oath of Moment with the lethal hits is pretty vicious as well too. So all in all, wrapping this thing up, Lane, you played a great game. You played off the secondaries. You know your Marines. You know your Marines and what you can and cannot do. I was trying very hard with some of the stuff. It was an emotional roller coaster. You know, first right out like not going first and then losing the reanimator and losing my stalker right off rip. I was like, oh, super sad. Then King walls the entire universe, super happy. Then King dies to a Tech Marine, super sad.
I was very happy about that. Tech Marine's a hero.
It was an emotional roller coaster for me on this one. Very exhausting.
He was an angry Tech Marine because he had lost one of the vehicles near him, so he got more attacks, and he needed every single one of those attacks.
But I am disappointed. I will say this, and I'm definitely one of my own biggest critics when it comes to this. I am disappointed that I know better than to not look at the mission ahead of time. And I was just too much in my head about, I'm going to do these secondaries, and this is how I'm going to play it, and I built it this way because of trying to use like the Doom sites and stuff like that. So I had tunnel vision at this is what I need to do in these as secondaries. And if we played a different mission, might have worked out better. You know, I still might have had difficulty at center, but at least then I could have played engage in all fronts with less. And then I had to do for this one where I had to dedicate a lot more to it. And also the sense that for the engage in all fronts, you were able to easily, just sweep and control. I didn't have 2 easy corners that I could just go, okay, I got this one. Now I just need to hit this one and keep getting points off that. So I'm a little disappointed in myself for not seeing that read ahead of time. And that's kind of like, with putting this together and putting together this game and everything, I would have liked to showcase that a little bit better. So I do take it emotionally on myself that I didn't do that right. But this is definitely, for anyone out there watching, it's definitely a moment to learn and go, before you go and do those fixed objectives, make sure you look at the mission and see what you're doing, and then don't be afraid to bring it down against your buddy when he's bringing all vehicles.
Do it.
Yeah, do it. Go, all right, well, I'm doing fixed. Because, again, like we said, going after that, the reduction in points for bring it down would actually have made it balanced. Because it's like, well, okay, I'm not going to be able to score anything else here. So here's the case.
Yeah, you don't get the extra, you get an extra point when you use it as tactical objective. So losing that when you take this fixed, it does make it a little bit more balanced. Like he killed a whole lot of 6 vehicles, but still it only been 24 points. It was 20 points. But it's not like it would have been easy. Not like he scored 4 or 5 vehicles and then he got all the points. So it still took a lot of damage to actually max that out.
Plus also in this matchup too, as well with like what we're trying to do here, for you in the Marines and the Iron Hands Templar hybrid, you do have the potential out of that detachment of running a stronger vehicle-based list just off some of the buffs that you're able to give specifically to vehicles. For me, I got a 6-up feel no pain on spiders. That's really just about it. For me, it was a lot of, okay, we're going to use these vehicle data sheets. I don't really, like Necrons don't really have an emphasis on you're running a vehicle-based army. Here are these extra buffs and abilities and things like that you get. Granted, I got the regular Necron jazz, but that Necron jazz functions from take this, take that, take the other, and then support it with the vehicles more so. At least that's how I felt with it afterwards. Like I felt like there was definitely a couple points I was behind the 8 ball with just abilities, especially when we were originally talking about the armies. You're like, oh, I can zero out a save here. I can advance and shoot with vehicles here. Vehicle. I can do this with a vehicle, this, that. And I was just like, oh, I got a 6-up field of pain. And I could do that.
Well, when you bring a spider back with reanimation protocols, you lose all sympathy from me.
You just hate my spiders.
I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, oh, poor DJ.
You just hate my spiders.
He brings back 75-point models multiple times in the game. Oh, yeah, you don't really have a lot for vehicles.
You just have massive hatred for my spiders.
All of Necrons in general, I do.
I think there's some units you like.
Nope.
The ones that die.
Yeah, the ones that aren't on the table anymore.
All right, guys. Well, hopefully you enjoyed the battle report. And I'll try and catch another one this week. Talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching.